You're listening to The Building Code, your guide for a better way to run your business. I'm Tom Houghton.
Hi, Tom. Paul Worth here. Happy to be here.
Happy to be here. I'm happy because we've got a great guest on our podcast today, and I'm excited just because we've already had some conversations with our guest. I'm going to keep teasing who it is, although if you clicked on this, you probably already know who it is.
It's in the title.
But just because we're already there, we're already teasing, we'll keep it going. So we've already had some conversation with our guest, and there was great conversation. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in the podcast. But I'm excited just because all around good guy, just a real great guy. I'm really teeing him up here. Wow, so he's going to deliver. He's going to knock it out of the park. Please welcome to our podcast, Bill Katsaros, owner of Roma Homes. You're based in Charlotte, North Carolina. How's it going, Bill?
It's going great. And that's a heck of an intro.
No kidding.
I think the only thing I could ask more for would be maybe like a little intro music. That would be...
we put that in post-production, so...
Well, like my own intro, like wrestling style. Like,
sure, yeah.
Music is other than that. Like, I got really hyped up with that right there. I was like, wow, this is...
So did I. Would you hype me up like that every episode?
That's
my co-host here is the most amazing man of all time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we got to keep it honest. So.
Sure, that's right.
So I think that's a new favorite question we should ask our guests when they come on is like, what, if you could introduce yourself with intro music, what music would you choose?
Okay.
I can tell you, it's Paradise City.
Nice.
Pretty epic.
That's
pretty epic.
I've given a few best man speeches in my day. I've been lucky enough, and each time I've gone to the DJ, I said, "Hey, before they announce, the best man to come up and speak, I want you to play this song."
Nice.
Right.
That's a good.
It's almost gotten to be like people are like, "Hey, are we gonna hear a little Paradise City today?" Yeah, absolutely.
I can hear it in my head too. And you're just like the big
Right.
drums. Like, man, that's good.
That's a good tip. The only thing I said to the DJ at my wedding was no chicken dance. Which I think is also a good tip.
And did it happen? Did they actually? Yeah.
There was bribes like trying to make it happen.
Oh, okay.
But the DJ stayed strong.
There you go.
Good for him.
Good for him. He knew who was paying. Who was paying for it. Right?
That's right.
Good stuff. Well, Bill, thank you so much for joining us on our podcast today. We've got lots to talk about. But I think first off, we always like to ask our guests about the name of the company. And obviously your name of your company is Roma Homes. And we talked about it a little bit before off air, but we thought we'd share with our guests that are listening now. Tell us the background of the company.
Yeah, it was not without a lot of thought. We knew we were going to be starting a company, and the name was something that was very important. We had a couple of different ones that I had actually started the LLC under, and I just wanted it to always be something that was meaningful and impactful, something that I would always, when I heard it, would resonate, would remind me of why we do what we do and how we were able to get to that point where we could do this as a full-time job. It was my Aunt Priscilla, who recently passed, was our family genealogist, and which is very difficult when you're going back to the villages of Greece where they, there was no 23andMe or whatever back then. As everybody was immigrating in the 50s and 60s from villages in Greece, like the village where my family's from was destroyed in a mudslide, like just to that type of background. So it was difficult to research, but she did find my great-grandfather sailed from Greece to the United States. He came to Ellis Island in New York City on a ship called the Roma. And when I read that little blurb, I was like, that's perfect. That's it. So we changed the name of the company, and it was in its infancy back then. I don't even think I had business cards, but it was perfect. And it's a great conversation piece too. It kind of helps people ask why, they think my name is Bill Roma when they meet me. So it's a way to kind of, and then we definitely have a lot of positive conversation out of it. But more importantly, we put it up. We're very proud. Every time I put it up there, it's a reminder of what my relatives, not even ancestors, like my grandparents went through to get here, came here with nothing, sacrifice that they put themselves and their families through so that each generation just did a little bit better. And that's something we're trying to do, from my kids and hopefully from our grandkids.
Wow. I think we're good. Let's.
That's a great.
It's a good message to send the podcast now. I think we just nailed it.
And
honestly, that's very.
Thanks
inspiring.
for tuning in.
Yeah.
I know, right?
Well, that's cool. You know, one thing I do want to ask about that, because you said you went through a couple iterations, and a lot of our listeners are business owners who had to come up with their own business name. Did you think about your exit? Because I think a lot of construction companies, they think about it now when they're 8-10 years into the business and they've named their business their last name.
Sure.
So, well, who do I sell this to now?
Right.
Was that part of the consideration at all, or did that not sort of get in there when you're just starting to build something?
No, yeah, it didn't. And so much of what we do is, my driving force behind getting into building was primarily as an investor and a developer. That was what initially intrigued me. Acquiring real estate and going from there. And then my journey, which brought me to being a builder, I always kind of knew it was going to be a business based off the assets that I acquired. Mm-hmm. But I also always knew I wanted to be a smaller shop. My goal wasn't to build something that I was going to try to sell one day. Mm-hmm. My goal was to do something that I love every day for as long as I possibly could. So we purposely keep it a little bit smaller. So that did not necessarily play into the deciding factor. Mm-hmm. It has continued. What it does, there's a lot of builders you see out there, they put their initials. And there's two that are like in the different areas where I'm at that I see, and I know they're great builders, and I confuse the two all the time. Right. Is it, this 3 letters, or is it that 3 letters?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
That's one that I would, if I was out there and anyone listening who might be looking to start or is thinking about a name, keep it meaningful, keep it impactful, something that motivates you every time you see it on your business card. But also it differentiates itself a little bit. Use that name. People are going to ask, well, why? And then they'll remember.
Yeah,
that was a big part of it.
Well, and also this industry, which we all love very much, has a tendency to have the same name. I mean, I can't tell you out of our 16,000 clients how many duplicate. Like there's some like sort of common like go-to names in construction. Sure. So if you are starting something and you want to know which names not to use,
just do a Google search too.
You can call me.
Yeah. Or I'll
tell you all of them.
Email Paul. We'll put his email in the show notes.
Sure,
and you can email him your business name ideas.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for that.
I do want to talk about your logo too, because this came up in another conversation, and I really like your logo design, because obviously from the marketing side of the end, you've totally hit the nail on the head, which is you want to create an impactful moment when your customers reach out to your potential customers that they remember you by. And I think that also extends to not only just naming, but also how you present yourself in a marketing form. So through like a logo. So maybe you could share, we'll put the logo in the show notes. We'll also put links to your social media so you can see it in action. But if you could just share a little bit of the thinking behind the design of that.
Yeah, it was, that was a pretty easy one. And it definitely helped the Roma Home, and we decided to call it Roma Homes, is in the Roma, we have the A of Roma is we tried to Greek it up, make it look like a Greek letter, although A is alpha, which looks just like, it's not a Greek looking letter. Mm-hmm. And then the omega, which is the O in home. So the alpha and omega, which certainly has a religious aspect to it of, God said he's the alpha and the omega. So that's one part of it. The second was that always resonated with me, where when I was just finishing college and I'm a big goal setter and goal oriented. I write them down. I save my former goals and we go back. Like my wife and I just hit a milestone for us financially. And we went back and looked at our first set of goals, and it was the alpha omega goal. So it was, what you remember, the most important thing. It's everything. God said, I am who I am. I am the beginning. I am the end. I am the alpha and omega. So it was taking it away, not necessarily from a religious standpoint, but helping me remember. And I had a briefcase. My first job out of college was a horrible job. You didn't even need a briefcase. But I had it. And on the inside of the briefcase, I had an alpha and omega, like stapled to the inside. So every time I opened it, I remembered what my goal was. That goal was actually, I wanted to buy a car, right? So it was like I always remembered, and it just kept me focused and driven. So when I was able to sneak it into the logo, I was pretty excited about that. So that's, and again, from a marketing standpoint, people ask me that all the time. Oh, Alpha Omega, what's that? And I tell them that story. Or they'll say, Alpha Omega, are you Greek? I said, yeah, I am. Then we talk a little bit about that. It's another way of being memorable. Yeah. I listened to a podcast. I wish I remember who it was, but this guy had really, really orange hair, and he had like a couple of like white spots in his hair, whatever pigment, and he went by like the leopard investor or something like that. And he's like, you know, people, because I would never change my hair color because people remember me simply because of that. So it's like, how do I be memorable? And we found that, you know, that the being, my parents were born here, but being, you know, a second generation American, Greek American, we like to say that, people remember that. And I think from a marketing standpoint, it helps us to be memorable. For us, you know, a big part of our business is we're trying to acquire property. We're trying to find, you know, lead generation is a big part of that. And it's a thing that people will remember when they see a letter from us. You know? Yeah. That's certainly a goal.
Yeah, definitely works.
So let's talk about how you kind of got into all this. We've kind of hinted at it a little bit, but to kind of bring it on home. So I know that I think when you were 18, you bought your first house, you renovated it, and then you sold it. And you continued to do this all throughout your college education. So how did you come up with that idea to even like start that way?
It goes back to my grandparents. My grandfather was a general contractor, a builder, and his path to financial independence was going to be through property. So he did it, helped my dad kind of get started a little bit. This is my grandfather's, my mom's dad. So my dad kind of saw that he got into rental properties a little bit. Now this was all in Detroit. They were, you know, back in the 60s, 70s, which Detroit experienced, you know, a pretty hard, you know, the riots back then impacted it. So they kind of got out of it around that time. But my dad always stayed in real estate. I had an uncle that was still pretty involved and kind of said, hey, you could do this. He showed me a couple of his rent checks. And I was like, that's me. How do you do that? And this was back in the days when you could go get a loan, a no-doc loan. So I was 18 years old. I went and said, you know, they asked me, fill in the box, how much money do you earn? And I put in a number, which, you know, I was 18. So that number was not totally accurate. But that was back then. That's ultimately why we had a financial collapse. People were allowed to say, yeah, I make this amount of money and no verification.
Sure.
But we did acquire it. We did pay it and we paid it back and we made our mortgage payments. And
right.
we definitely did it the right way. But it was having a little bit of obviously the family background that helped. And then for me, I knew I had to put myself through school. And there's no way at 18 years old I was going to put myself through school. I wanted to graduate college with zero debt. And there was no way I was going to do that, you know, delivering pizza. It's like I had to figure something else out. You know, it was fortunate. It was 1998 at that point. So it was a lot easier to kind of do that. Prices were a lot different, even in Detroit, right? It's different now. So we were kind of right time. From there, it just made sense. Instead of getting a summer job, let's buy a house. So I did it with one of my best friends from high school a couple times, brother-in-law one other time. It was a great summer job. We'd get in around 10 o'clock. We'd work till midnight, and then all our buddies would come over, and we'd have a little fun at the house because, you know, you had nowhere else to go after that. So
sure.
So basically, they were your party houses. During
exactly, basically.
It's good.
Yeah, we're just going to flip them, and we're going to fix it up in the end, and there's no furniture. It was not needed.
Sure, yeah.
You know.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's so
great for demo nights too. You know, just start handing out sledgehammers. Just take out, you know, whatever you want. You know?
Every night's demo night.
Exactly.
You know what question I had, since you've been in the industry for a long time, did you start pre HGTV shows popularizing this idea of flipping? And I guess the second question, have you seen the market sort of tighten because there's so many more people trying to get in?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, you know, yes to both.
Yeah.
So there was no, this is not, for me, it was 98 1998, that summer was when we bought our first house. And for sure, I mean, there was no, I don't even think HGTV was around at that point. What you did see was the late night infomercial at that point. Carlton Sheets was the only one, no money down. That was the only one. And at least that I was ever familiar with. I also knew fortunately at a young age, and I don't recommend this to everybody, but you've heard the term, you have to take massive action if you want massive results. And I was like, I could spend all this money on seminars, or I can just go do it. You know, and that definitely helped in the beginning. And even once we were deciding to kind of go full tilt, you know, I had a full-time job before we went at this full time from a business standpoint. And you just, at some point you just got to do it. You just got to jump in. And I had a lunch in Charlotte with a couple guys that I consider, I really, really look up to. And I told them, how'd you do it? How'd you make the leap? And the one told me I liquidated my 401k. I was like, how else do you do this? You know? I said, okay, you just gotta do it at some point. I don't recommend that for everybody, but it's definitely, and then the competition is steep right now. It's one of the reasons we're deciding to stay small and not try to get too big, especially too big, too fast, that we're not worrying about paying overhead. And, you know, we can kind of move, we can be, take down a little bit extra in terms of volume. We don't have to take quite as much. We can, because we're not worrying about keeping everybody else, you know, going. And that's something that's the Detroiter in me. Like, you want to talk about the effect of 2006, 2007. I was still in Detroit at that point and saw a lot of people just devastated by the economy. And so, I mean, it's certainly a very popular thing. There's a lot of guys out there that are trying to get into real estate investing, flipping, wholesaling. You know, it's a it's a great way. It's still viable, but I would definitely say it's a lot harder to get started, especially with that no money down philosophy, for sure.
Yeah. So it sounds like your experience in flipping houses in college probably sparked the start of what is now your career, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Can you share a little bit about how your career in construction progressed to where you're at today? Obviously, from starting and flipping houses, now you've got your own kind of establishment and you're doing it all now. Yeah.
So it finished school debt-free, by the way.
Well done.
And thank you. And I always wanted to, in the background, this is something I always wanted to keep doing was the real estate aspect, investing. I had a college degree that I went to, so you feel like you have to put your college degree to work. I think a lot of builders probably go through that. It took me a few years to realize I wasn't very interested in that. Ultimately, it was in my mid-20s, like crisis. I was always a high school lacrosse coach.
Oh, nice.
Loved the game of lacrosse. It was my mid-20s crisis of I've got a little bit of cash, no kids, I'm not married, I'm single. This would be awesome. And long story short, but ended up as an assistant Division I lacrosse coach. And that was really cool. It was a lot of fun. The pay was, you
did it for the love of the game, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when I met my wife pretty quickly, thereafter we got engaged and said, all right, it might be time to move on. And I also wasn't a great coach either. And it didn't take me very long to realize like, I'm not very good at this. So let's move on. So we, when I ultimately got to Charlotte, so I was lucky. I got a really good job. I was in medical device sales. Got my foot in the door, which my sister actually helped me get my foot in the door there. And when we bought our first house, I went through 3 contractors. And I was like, we eventually got through it. And I knew I was going to buy a house that was a fixer-upper that needed a lot of work, that I would come in, and on day one, I would have equity. And whenever anybody asked me what I do from a investing, real estate, building standpoint, how do you get started? I said, start with your own house. Build your equity, and then use your equity and invest your equity. Go from there. If you don't have any cash, you gotta figure out how to build up your equity. And that was my goal. So let's do this. And I knew on day one, when I was done fixing up that house, I would have equity that I'd be able to use. I have a house now, and now I'd be able to use that money, create that, turn that liability into an asset. And then we decided, once we had the equity, we pulled it. We bought our first, fixer upper. The key to all of this, we loved that process. This is the first time between my wife and I, we enjoyed it. Like, this was fun. It was frustrating with the contractors of like, what is going on? I said, all right, well, this is cool. We enjoyed this. And we decided to do it on a project, something that we were going to do. This is before we had kids. We were going to do part-time. And again, I went through 3 contractors. And I was like, this is just getting ridiculous. At the end of the day, like, I don't need to hire a GC and pay somebody a premium for subs that don't show up. Like, I can hire people that don't show up. Like, I don't need, like, that's not difficult.
Yeah.
So I decided to go get my license, and we put the project on pause. I went and got my license. And that really got the wheels turning of, like, it started as, well, maybe I can finish this project, or we'll do 1 or 2. So I said, why not on this house? Let's build an addition. Let's we did a small master suite off of a, classic like 70s ranch style house. It just fell in love. Like, this was awesome. When you stand in something that you create, you literally put down on paper, because most of what we do, we design and then build ourselves. And we have designers and architects now that help us, but it's always a vision that starts in our head. We put it on paper and then say, send it off, help us do this. And to stand in something that you created is an incredible feeling. And then the next opportunity, like I said, it was always an investing, real estate driven business is what we wanted to do. The next opportunity that we found was clearly a teardown. There's this urban infill 2 minutes outside of downtown Charlotte, and said, all right, let's give it a shot. And I'd never built a house before, but said, let's give it a whirl. At the end of the day, we had some really good subs that I trusted, most of which still work with us. And my network, we kind of surrounded ourselves with the right people as well, that gave me the confidence to say, let's give this a shot. And then I haven't looked back since.
And was that the time, the full rebuild, where you felt like you needed something like Buildertrend, or did you need sort of that backbone to project management, or was it still needed some more volume before you got there?
A little bit more volume, and it was after our first big year, and we had to put together our taxes. And we had QuickBooks, but it was the most trying time in my wife and I attempt at running this business, when we said, we've got to get more organized.
Yeah.
We were small enough that we could kind of manage the subcontractors well, but my goal was always to have, and like QuickBooks is okay at it, but not great, was to have that categorized cost effectiveness. And when I was doing it in a spreadsheet and then trying to get everything into QuickBooks, it was a absolute nightmare. Mm-hmm. I'm still afraid one day I'm going to get audited because of that year. It was just, so when we found Buildertrend, or Buildertrend found us, it was immediate. We would, like, within minutes of the first demonstration, when we saw how what I need from a project management perspective could easily be communicated to QuickBooks at the push of a button, forget it. That line, it was like, okay. And then everything else that comes with Buildertrend we're continually, like, literally my goal. It's funny, is like, nothing related to the podcast, but as we were driving up, said, what are your goals for the vacation while we're gone because we're small business owners. You're never not working.
Exactly. Yeah.
And my 2 goals were to fix up our selections template and our scheduling template. It was like, after we finished 3 or 4 houses this last time here, and we learned a lesson. So my goal was so now we're getting into much, bigger, I don't want to say bigger, but influential parts of that software that's helping us for sure. I'm here because of Buildertrend.
Wow.
You know, now I got my project manager. Right now we're using this time in between projects. He's out doing some like warranty punch work for us and helping organize all of that. And I'm communicating with the clients, and it's all being done through Buildertrend. Like I don't have to be there. I'm in Delaware, and my business is in Charlotte, and I'm getting the daily log reports. I'm getting the updates, communicating. You know, all the homeowners info is inside Buildertrend. It's all in this platform. Whereas, you know, before it was significantly less, organized. That's for sure. But that's a huge thing. And the software has helped us feel confident that I could leave for 2 weeks and still feel like I have just as much control on my business as I did if I'm standing in the project.
We're gonna have to grab that, throw that on the website somewhere. No, but it's true. It's like, get Buildertrend and you can take a quasi vacation.
You can take
You'll still work a little bit, but
exactly.
That's right.
You can be in Delaware.
Yeah.
No, we appreciate that.
It is. You could sit on the beach and look. All right, what happened today? Like, why do I have to be sitting in an office? And it affords that. Like, it's been a great asset for us.
Yeah, and I think you really nailed it. I think a lot of people have the misconception that we got to dive all the way into Buildertrend and unlayer everything. And how long have you been using it? Just approximately.
I think 3 years.
So yeah, you're 3 years in, and you're still sort of unlayering some of the things and getting more in depth into the different features, which I think is important. I think a lot of people come for probably one or two reasons: the project management aspect or the financial management aspect. And I think there's a lot of our clients who are listening who probably haven't dove into the financial management yet. Connecting QuickBooks and the financials, and you feel like that's somewhere that really helped you out. Because you guys, and Tom, you referenced this. We've got a series on YouTube and IGTV, Instagram TV, called Real Talk, Real Pros. You guys talked about this. So that you're saying that part really helped you out quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you've ever tried to navigate QuickBooks, good luck.
No.
I've tried.
You have. Oh, yeah,
I have tried.
Yeah, if you're trained in it and you know what to do, sure, it's a great tool. I mean, that's why everybody uses it.
Right.
But, I think I like to think that I'm a fairly bright guy, but I look at QuickBooks and I'm just like, what is this?
Yeah.
Whereas I can open up Buildertrend. How much did I spend on tile on 1924 Allen Street? Boom, boom, boom. 5-second answer. So much of what I'm doing, we don't necessarily do estimates because we don't do a lot of custom projects. But I have to, literally, I think tonight I have to make a decision if I'm going to buy this piece of property. And I have to look at it and say, okay, if I'm going to pay X amount of dollars for the land, I know I'm going to need to build 3,200 square feet. How much did I spend on my last 3,200 square foot house? And what level of those finishes were there? Okay, boom, you push that report out to QuickBooks or to Excel, which you can, just format it over there, adjust a couple of numbers accordingly, and I'm making decisions in 5 seconds versus sitting down, because when you have that software and so easily to use, I'm constantly looking at those numbers. But I know what these things cost me. I spent too much money. That's tells me that. I'm like, God, we got to stop spending so much money on these projects. I think our projects, they sell fast for a reason, and you're not going to sell fast if you're building cheap. But
absolutely,
so that was huge. And I'll tell you that I think we talked about it on the IGTV. That sold me. What kept me fully sold, the ease at which we use the subcontractor insurance certificates. So now, after my first audit, when I was still doing our books, after my first insurance audit, when the insurance auditor basically told me, she said, I've never seen anybody this organized.
Wow.
Where she said, I need this certificate, boom. I had them all in seconds. She goes, most of the time people are running around their office, they're calling the sub, where is all this stuff? We have it synced now where my bookkeeper will not cut a check if that is red flagged, if the insurance is expired in Buildertrend, if it's red flagged. So now the sub's calling me, hey, where's my check? And I look in, oh, you're red flagged. Where's your insurance? Because I was audited before Buildertrend and had to pay a ton of money because I couldn't find subcontractor, or they didn't have it, or I didn't remember. But now they don't get a check unless I have their certificate.
Yeah, that's a great
got our first audit. I had a refund, and I was like, the refund paid for Buildertrend, the audit, right? Like what I got back out of that, if I wasn't as organized, there's no way. So there's no way we would ever not do it, just because of the organization between QuickBooks and Buildertrend, being able to sync all of that and those red flags. Like every audit, we're good. I'm not paying extra money.
Yeah. As the product person on this podcast, I guess that's my job, is to talk about the features. There's just a ton to unpack there. Like I probably need my own little episode to talk about all the things he just mentioned there. Yeah. But the one takeaway that you just mentioned is that in your sub and vendor profile, you can actually attach the up-to-date workers' comp insurance and general liability insurance for your subs and vendors. You can set an expiration date. Not only does it red flag for payments when you're going to pay people, but it also sends a notification to the actual sub and vendor that reminds them to get you updated insurance too. So be sure to check that out in your sub and vendor tag. If you don't,
it annoys them. I get comments all the time like, because I set it where it starts sending them emails a month before it expires.
Right. Yep, that's a
so they hate it. They hate it. Like, well, give me your certificate.
Yeah, the emails will stop.
That's right.
Yeah, so and I think the other big takeaway is if you haven't dove into the financial side of Buildertrend or hooking up your QuickBooks and your financials in Buildertrend, it's a huge game changer for you. You know, so much so that we've got a ton of partnerships we roll out through our value-added services program. And we just rolled one out with a company month end that specializes in this. They're exclusive to Buildertrend clients. And what they do is they help with the initial consultation of the audit, making sure all your cost codes and everything's set up correctly. They make sure the two systems are talking perfectly to each other, and something you can sign up for. So you can check that out, I think, in our marketplace.
Yep, it's in the Buildertrend marketplace. Yep. Yeah. So you just click on that cogwheel and click on the link to the Buildertrend marketplace, and you can find out more about it.
Check out month end for all you listeners. We probably, it would have been nice if we had that for you. You probably had to do that all on your own, but you're better for it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
Just like you said earlier, you got to jump in and do it yourself.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Right.
Yeah. It's good stuff. Bill, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I just feel like I'm so encouraged by how Buildertrend has helped your company, but I just love also your dedication to your focus to your business. I think that's fantastic. I think we need more business owners like yourself who are willing to keep the goal in mind, keep the goal in perspective, and figure out where you're at now and how you're going to get from where you're at to where you want to be. So keep up the great work. We're here right beside you, cheering you on. So thanks again for coming on the podcast and sharing your experience.
Yeah, I feel like we did.
It was an honor. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, I feel like we didn't even dive in. Like this Bill's up for definite repeat guest contention.
We'll talk to you on your next vacation.
Yeah, so I was going to say.
Guys, I could talk about myself all day. So.
I love it. Makes our job easy.
Paul is right there with you.
The industry, it's easy because it's the industry I'm passionate about. But this tool, I'm passionate about what it's done for me, and for, especially between me and my wife. Like, I was worried, like, how are we going to do this and work together? And this thing made a big, big difference, and not only in our business, but just in our relationship. So it's really helped.
We're out here.
I'm happy to help you guys any way I can.
That's amazing. We're out here saving marriages, creating vacations.
That's right.
That's right.
This is amazing. So check us out next time with Bill's on vacation. That'll be our next episode.
Our next episode. Bill's back on vacation. Yeah.
We'll workshop that a little bit.
Exactly.
That's right.
Awesome. Thanks, Bill.
You bet. Thanks, fellas.
Love what you heard? Don't forget to rate and subscribe to our podcast so you can hear from more guests that will benefit your business. Also, please check out our show notes page for more information on what we discussed on this episode. You can find it at buildertrend.com/podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on The Building Code. Appreciate you.